So the region where Idaho, Oregon, and Nevada all come together is a special place. Perhaps one of the least populated areas in the lower 48. It's a place where a flatfoot like me can get lost. For many just traveling through, this area is just arid wasteland, a place where cell service is sparse and gas stops are far between. But if you ride, the solitude of this all but forgotten region is heaven, and absolutely full of surprises. From glacier-carved mountains rising to almost 10,000 feet, to dried lake beds that rival Bonneville salt flats. It's a place where the history of westward expansion is still being written, and a place where the fastest woman on the planet tragically lost her life just a couple of years ago, setting a land speed record. So come along with us as we explore the Steens Mountain Wilderness in Harney County, Oregon. This is our first trip out for the season, and we are all super stoked. The Steens Mountain area is totally new to us, and we're getting a chance to introduce our good buddy Kinley to adventure riding. But on top of all of that, Garrett and I are also getting a chance to take our new Triumphs out for the first time. Super sweet. I've got a 110-mile ride to meet up with those two, and then after we cross through Boise to catch Highway 95, we've got another 75 miles or so to Jordan Valley. It was an absolutely beautiful day with a perfect bluebird sky. It was also incredibly hot. Lots of water stops, and our waitress couldn't keep our iced tea full enough when we stopped for lunch. Leaving Jordan Valley, our first stop was to visit the grave of the youngest member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. He's one of the only men ever to be honored on U.S. currency that is not a president. I'm sure you've seen this individual on the Sacagawea dollar. No, not her. Him. This is Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, the son of Sacagawea. He was less than 2 months old when he began his historic journey with the Corps of Discovery, which was just the beginning of a remarkable life. What many people may not know is that Clark had a deep affection for Pomp, as he was called, and in 1812 he fostered the boy, supporting him and helping him get the best education possible. At the age of 16, he moved to Europe for 6 years, and he became fluent in French, German, and Spanish. After returning to the States, he led a life that chronicles the American West. He was a trapper and a guide, he served during the Mexican-American War, and he was even involved in California politics, which he ditched to chase gold in the California Gold Rush. In 1866, he gave up his stake in California and headed towards Montana, where the new gold strikes were just being discovered. Crossing the Nevada and Oregon desert in April, the conditions proved too tough for this 61-year-old. He is said to have become cold-soaked from his damp clothes and contracted pneumonia. With a raging fever, he managed another 25 miles or so to Inskip Station, just a few miles from present-day Jordan Valley. It's reported there that the shopkeeper cared for him as best they could, but they couldn't save him. This modest monument now stands where he's buried. We moved another 40 miles or so south on Highway 95, turning right at Burns Junction onto the Steens Highway, and turning left again on East Steens Road towards Field Station. It was an exceptionally beautiful day this day. A soft desert wind provided a little relief from the heat. The songs of the desert birds and the smell of the sagebrush reminded me of my childhood, riding and exploring the desert on my Honda trail bike. To explain the allure of the desert to some is hard. To many, it's an ugliness to endure as you travel through. It's dry, arid, and inhospitable. But I can't get enough of it. It is still so incredibly untouched that the past is very much alive. Very few people call it home, and those that do frequently live a life of hard work and solitude, sometimes more connected to their past than to the 21st century. I guess I'm an old soul, because I do feel an honest kinship with these people. But the Steens Wilderness isn't all about pioneers of the past. It's also a place where a few modern pioneers are breaking boundaries of gender and speed. This is the Alvord Desert, 84 square miles of dried lake bed, 10 miles long and 5 miles wide. Perfectly flat, this is the Bonneville Salt Flat of the Pacific Northwest. It's a place of pure exhilaration, heartbreak, and tragedy. So this is Alvord Lake in Oregon. What part of Oregon are we in? What county? Malheur County. And this is Alvord Lake. It's like the Bonneville Salt Flats. And 2 years ago, world land speed record was set by Jessie Combs with an average speed of 519 miles an hour. She did 2 runs. 522. Sadly, she didn't survive. Leaving the Alvord Desert and the Jessie Combs Memorial, we continued towards Field Station. In 1881, this was a stage stop on the Burns to Winnemucca stage route. Today, it's the center of commerce for the area, consisting of a bar, a store, a cafe, a gas station, and a campground. There's also a 2-room schoolhouse serving kindergarten through 8th grade. Gas was expensive, but with no other options, it was worth every penny. Oh, and their chocolate malts were as good as I've had anywhere. It's been a long day, and our next challenge is to find a camp for the night. Our plan is to ride another 50 miles into Frenchglen, an historic cattle town and stage stop, little changed over the last 100 years. Today it's an Oregon State Heritage Site. Riding into Frenchglen, you feel like you're going back in time. We are told that the old hotel serves nightly dinner for guests, but this night there was no room at the inn. A helpful gal working at the general store directed us to the Frenchglen Resort for clean showers and a great campsite. From here, we were well positioned for tomorrow's ride into the Steens. Garrett heading down to the showers. Cammy's on the phone with his wife in his tent. Mosquitoes are thick. Here's camp. And I have jet oil. uber fun. Just had a shower, feel great. But like I said, mosquitoes are...
Is that 10:30 Idaho time or Oregon time?
That's Oregon time.
Oh, really? It's 11:30 our time.
And there you go.
You're awesome. Kinley, there's coffee.
What's that?
There's
And
coffee.
No, I don't do coffee.
So this morning, about 6:30, the sun was just coming up, and I was laying in bed just enjoying the really nice quiet, and then all of a sudden I heard this peck, 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 peck. Right outside my tent was my shoe, and so I threw my shoe, and it came up and it landed right on the table. The bird flew off. The shoe was on a back roll. It landed on the table. It bounced onto the bench, and it rolled right back exactly to my tent. I didn't even have to get over and move it.
I don't believe it.
It's all true. As good as.
You can always count on Garrett to be the first one up and to make a great cup of coffee. And this morning's coffee was spectacular. All kidding aside, this was as close to the perfect morning as you can have touring on a bike, and the day was only going to get better as we rode into the Steens, hoping to make the loop, complete with the overlook of the Alvord Desert some 5,000 feet below. So here's Frenchglen. So we stayed right about there last night. So we rode back into Frenchglen. Now we just rode down here. I think we can make it all the way to gate 4. Everything else is still seasonal and closed. So Garrett, what's wrong?
I'm getting some static for some reason on my headset. So I'm.
I like the pace of riding on gravel. The scenery opens up when you have the ability to look around as you ride. And there's time for plenty of stops when you see something interesting.
Oh my God.
So,
What's the difference between beer nuts and deer nuts?
4 legs.
Beer nuts are over $1, deer nuts are under $1. There you go.
The desert was about to come alive in a way we never expected. So the region where Oregon, Nevada, and Idaho all come together is home to thousands of Mustangs. They are wary and seldom can you get close to them. But these two guys were pretty used to people, and I'm sure they were hoping that we had a carrot or an apple to share.
So here we are on the Steens Road, and we've got some wild horses here, and these guys are pretty well tamed.
It's hard to believe that in the 21st century, wild horses continue to roam the land just as they did 150 years ago, available to anyone who has the courage to put a saddle on one, which was not me. But it was time to continue up the Steens. We thought the gate would be closed, but we're getting farther than we thought. And that is just a $1 million view out there. So we've made it to, well, pretty much most of the way up the Steens Mountains. We would love to have gotten to one of these ridges up here because we could look down on Alvord Lake. But look at that Glacial Valley. This is as good as Glacier National Park. Look at that. So it was a little disappointing to not be able to continue on, but that's the nature of riding in the West, particularly at altitude and early in the season. Still, it was a great outing, and now it was time to head back to camp. But Mother Nature wasn't done with us yet, and when we got back to camp, she had played a little trick on Kinley.
So when I pulled up, my tent was missing. It was over there in the garbage cans. Literally blown over there. With sleeping bag in it, towel in it, a bunch of clothes.
Alright,
This is what the tent looks like right now.
That's the $29.99 Walmart special.
Alright, so we're going to try to see if we can fix this so you can get some sleep tonight. Cook them all. Alright, they're getting cooked. And the water's already hot. It's jet boil. I think I might have some oil, but maybe not. It's always prepared with the kitchen. Nope.
It's now our third and final day on our Steens adventure. But before we head home, we have one more bit of history to explore. A bit of Western lore where ranches were measured in miles, not acres, and cattle was king, and disputes were often settled in tragedy. Peter French, along with his financier, a California doctor named Glenn, acquired the modest Porter Ranch in 1872, near where we made camp the last couple of nights. With Glenn's finances, French grew the P Ranch into an empire of epic proportions, spanning 3 valleys and over 200,000 acres. He was a shrewd businessman and apparently broke quite a few laws in the process, alienating his neighboring white settlers and the natives alike. Riding along these bluffs and open meadows, it's hard not to imagine proud warriors on horseback and cowboys pushing cattle, two cultures colliding. French became the pariah of the region as his appetite for land resulted in disputes with homesteaders nearby. He fought with them over water rights and tried to have them forcibly ejected from lands that they had settled. History says that he was quick to use a horsewhip on settlers standing in his way, but in December of 1897, one rancher had enough. French fenced access to the Oliver Ranch, and in response, Oliver shot him dead. French was apparently unarmed at the time, but public sentiment was with Oliver, and despite these facts being laid out at trial, he wasn't convicted. Unique to French's operation were these huge round barns. This one is in near perfect condition with a spectacular nest inside at the peak. Finally, it's off to our final stop in Crane, Oregon for some lunch and some fuel before starting the long ride home. Although we weren't able to fully complete the Steens Loop, this was still an incredible ride and adventure. We fully plan on revisiting the Steens one day soon, and hopefully conquering the Steens Mountain Loop, unlocking more of the treasures that this part of the world hides in plain sight. I hope you enjoyed our Steens Mountain Wilderness adventure, and if you did, we will be making more. So please like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, that's where you said we're going to be 10 miles out of our way. Gotcha. Well, we just had a great lunch here on our way home. Nice stop for gas, nice stop for food.